On my second summer assignment as a seminarian, and as is typical for men in that position, the pastor didn't really have anything for me to do. And so he said, go help set up for Mass. And one Sunday, I was in the final preparations. I was running around making sure that everything was in its place. And then a group of people began to pray the rosary in the church. And it must have been the expression on my face. And they said, because they said to me, they said, "Oh, don't worry, we can pray the rosary in 11 minutes. And it was a matter of years before I understood why that was so disturbing to me, why that just didn't seem right to me. And what I discovered was that the real value of the rosary in anyone's life is that it overcomes a very diminished understanding of joy and sorrow and wisdom and beauty in our lives. We are so beset by ignorance and malice and weakness and self-interest that if we were left to our own, we would never know how great joy, sorrow, wisdom, and beauty actually are in our lives. And the reason why the rosary is given to us, the reason why the rosary is organized the way that it is, and the reason why we so regularly contemplate all 20 mysteries of the Most Holy Rosary is because in the course of years, through discipline and sincerity and clarity of heart, we gradually begin to understand the true dimensions of joy and sorrow and wisdom and beauty by contemplating the lives of Mary and Jesus, whose earthly lives were completely unaffected by the effects of sin. Again, if we were left to our own, we might take the occasions for joy in our lives as an occasion to begin celebrating our own lives or our own selves. If we were left on our own, the many causes of sorrow in our lives may very well be used as tools to undermine our confidence in God. I've heard it many times. How could an all-good, all-loving, all-powerful God allow something like this to happen to me? Or so self-satisfied with our own understanding of wisdom and beauty that we never discover their full extent. And not only do we discover the true extent of these four things in human life, again, by prayerfully contemplating the lives of Jesus and Mary, specifically in the Most Holy Rosary, but we begin to realize that the only proper human response to any of these things, to joy, to sorrow, to wisdom, or to beauty in our lives, is given to us by Mary herself in tonight's gospel. That anytime these things come to our mind, and in fact, particularly in those moments when any of those things seems like it's going to overwhelm us, then let our prayer be hers. My soul doth magnify the greatness of God. Because you see, in the moment that Mary was in that cold, dark, smelly stable, she looked over the edge of that manger, and the eyes of Mary and Jesus met for the first time. And the overpowering joy of that moment never left her. But her response to that joy was always to acknowledge the greatness of God. When Mary was kneeling at the foot of the cross, when they took our Lord's body down off the cross and laid it in her arms, again, her response was to acknowledge the greatness of God, knowing that in spite of all appearances that it was inevitable that God would bring about some far greater good as a result of all that had happened that day. When Mary was assumed into heaven, she saw the full extent of beauty and the possibility of beauty in any human life. And again, her reaction: my soul magnifies the greatness of God. And so, I pray that you all recall that God created you for one purpose. One. Not to be a better person, not to be a good spouse or a good parent or a good neighbor or a good coworker. These are all good things. These are all wonderful gifts from God. But the sole purpose for God creating you is so that you would become a saint. That's it. That is the fullness and authenticity of any life. And again, by contemplating the great mysteries of the Most Holy Rosary, we come back and back and back and back to that simple fact. Not to grow in virtue, not to heal our wounds, to become a saint. By coming back and again and to say to our Lord with sincerity of heart, Lord, whatever the world brings me today, whatever joy I experience today, whatever sorrow I experience today, whatever wisdom or beauty I encounter today, Lord, let it be for the honor and glory of your name. Lord, I offer you all of my intellect, all of my will, all of my memory, all of my accomplishments, all of my many relationships, all of these things, Lord, I lay at your feet. And in return, I only ask one thing. Remember me, Lord, when you enter into your kingdom. And may my soul magnify your greatness.